Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Breakaway session by Palo Alto Networks on the topic Cybersecurity in the Age of AI. As a business-centric technology executive, Ms. Rajavel excels at promoting transformation, innovation, profitability, and agility through the creative use of technologies at large corporations such as Citrix, McAfee, and Cisco Systems, as well as rapid growth startups. Her specialties include IT and digital leadership, cybersecurity, enterprise portfolio management, data and analytics, M&A, diligence and integration, and so much more. Currently, as the CIO of Palo Alto Networks, she leads the global IT team that drives industry transformation for cybersecurity and delivers solutions that empower the company's mission of making a world where each day is more safe and secure than the last. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. I'm pretty sure this is actually presentation after presentation after presentation. So let's keep it not as a presentation. So I'm going to just say that instead of presentation, I do have some slides. I looked at this as a, more of a practitioner session. As a CIO, I have exactly some of your job. Just the company name is a different company name called Palo Alto Networks. So this is much more of a practitioner session. And I'm actually open to take, we were thinking about presentation and questions. Maybe we can even have Q&A along the session, so it's a little bit more interactive than another presentation, right? What I would like to cover today is a little bit of a practitioner point of view. How Palo Alto Network, we have approached security, and what is the journey we have gone through. And I'm pretty sure some of that may be relevant for you. Some of them may not be because you have your own industry-specific use cases. I would love to learn from you if there's anything that you see that we are not covering as well. Okay. So with that, let me start with the, So I'll give a little bit of a context so you can relate to it where we are starting. About, I would say, 4 or 5 years back, we had a new, actually it's more than 5 years now, Nikesh Arora became the CEO of Palo Alto Networks. One of the challenge he gave to IT was because at that time, IT was predominantly 39 data centers with all our assets all over the place. And he said, hey, I'm not in the business of data centers. IT, why are you guys in the business of data center? I'm going to be looking at solutions to protect the cloud, so you move to the cloud. So we are going to be the first people who will be in the cloud. And of course, like any CEO, he gave IT 18 months to move entire workload to the cloud. Of course, that ended up being, a bunch of lift and shift, bunch of transformation, but more so importantly, it also forced us to kind of pause and step back and say how we should approach security, because what we had as security with that 39 data centers is not anymore the right option, right? And we anchored on, if you go 5 years back and ask what is zero trust, you will hear all kind of answers. People telling a tool as zero trust to a product and solution as zero trust to people saying it's a concept. But truly, today, everyone aligns saying that, hey, zero trust is a framework, architecture framework. It's not one single technology that you're going to just nail it. It's a different collection on a particular architecture framework, how you're going to do. So, but let me share with you our approach of what is zero trust as a definition is. For us, zero trust is actually 3 vectors. It has a user, application, infrastructure. And those 3 vectors, we look at it with the lens of 5 security apertures, I call it. The first one starts with, is this entity a secure entity? And the secure entity is the user. So right kind of identity. And then is this entity, which is the device, is the right kind of security? Or in other words, the device security is the second lens. The third lens is we look at it as once you have the identity validated and verified, and once you have the device validated and verified, is the connection to this entity a secure connection, right? That's where the network security comes into picture. And once you have the secure connection, is the workload secured and the integrity is protected? And the 5th lens that we apply is the user experience lens. Typically, people say, how come user experience is security? For me, it's really important. You can't have security saying that because of security, I'm going to have a friction in your user experience. We know that people are smart enough to figure out working around security. Also, we know that security cannot be an inhibitor to productivity. So we truly look at, like, for example, in our SASE solutions, one of the biggest thing is what is the application digital experience management, which is part of the service itself, because we truly believe experience has to be baked in when you are designing your security architecture as well. This is kind of the anchor. I mean, the truth is, 5 years back, we didn't write this slide. It kind of evolved, and today when I step back and look at it, this is kind of the anchors that we have put in place as 3 vectors, and the lenses we've used along the way, how we built our security architecture. So let's start look at how it has been built. Let's start with users, which is actually the first lens, right? Keeping the theme of experience, in Palo Alto, you can have the device of your choice. When a person accepts a job in Palo Alto, as part of their offer letter, there is a page of IT, and we tell, here are the choices that you have. It could be a Mac, it could be a Windows. If you're really tired, married to Google, you can have a Chromebook too. We don't stop you. I'll give you all the choices. People actually pick what the choice they want as part of accepting their job offer. The moment they accept the job offer, it kicks off an automated workflow, creating that identity and creating the credentials. Depending on where you are, there's a certain level of access also provision. And this is actually based on our RBAC at the enterprise level. There will be another layer of RBAC once your project assessment and assignment and what happens, right? So the most important thing we did was starting with the endpoint simplification. The endpoint we used to have, this was actually when we had multiple security tools and best of breed sort of integrating everything. There's over close to 10 different agents that used to be on our endpoint. Today I have 3 agents totally. If it is a Mac, you have Jam as an agent that's for managing the device itself. If it is Microsoft Windows, then it's Intune. And Chromebook, of course, you don't need it. It's just a browser for all said and done. The second agent that we have is we want to make sure we have a full visibility of the traffic that's egress and ingress, and we want to make sure that's encrypted. We want to make sure the DLP policies are applied, etc. That's our Global Protect, or I would call it, that's an agent that actually looks at it from a network point of view or SASE point of view, and also is our DLP point of view. That's a second agent. That's all about the information in and out and applying the security controls. The third agent is actually the behavior of the entity, which is the device and the user, which is our XDR agent. It is for detection and protection. That's all. We don't have any more agents. And honestly, I can tell you right now, my help desk doesn't get, of course I get a lot of tickets on other things, but today we don't have any more tickets coming from people complaining about their laptop issues as such, which is probably close to 0. That's the number of tickets we get because we don't load our laptop with performance issues. If it's a managed device, we do have a certificate that's on the device. In the notion of zero trust, for us, managed device and unmanaged device, we really don't distinguish, but still I know that whether the device is a managed device or an unmanaged device, there are certain things that I don't allow, especially if somebody is an unmanaged device. I don't allow them to touch any of my source code. For us, our IP is our security product source code, so we don't allow them to touch. But other than that, that also we are relaxing now based on our Prisma Access browser, which is a remote browser. Because if you kind of think about it, 90% of your workload is happening in the browser. So recently we have launched our Prisma Access browser, which actually made my job very easy. We have over 5,000 contract population. We used to issue laptops, and we were just renewing a new contract with close to 2,000 users. So right now, I'm not giving them any more laptops. They're just using our browser, and we are having limited application access out of the browser. It has a much higher DLP policies as well. I mentioned about the SASE, our remote access is, always on VPN is from our SASE agent with Prisma Access SASE agent. The other big thing for us is when we moved into with this direct to cloud, I got rid of my MPLS, which used to cost me about $7 million a year for us, which is kind of the multiple MPLS. But more than that, it is the performance is what I hear from our sales organization. We are in 69 countries, operating across more than 69 offices, and also our distribution is in more than 100 countries. With the Prisma Access browser, one of the things is we have actually gateways in 125 different locations. So when you're in Prisma Access browser with our SASE, you're connecting to the nearest gateway. That gives, and also on top of it, we have app acceleration using a KOLKATA technology behind the scenes, which is almost, I would say, sort of CDN, but it's superior than CDN in many ways. So it actually gives a better performance as well from a user experience point of view. We do manage our user experience through our application digital monitoring experience, ADEM we call it, which is part of our SASE. It's just a service that runs on top of SASE. So I know exactly, and my team actually looks at if somebody is having a repeat offense on performance issues, I know what's going on. So proactively a ticket will be raised and saying that, hey, that laptop potentially is having an issue, or that connection from that user is potentially having an issue before they comply and go and check it out what's going on, right? I mentioned about we moved to the cloud. So our cloud is a hybrid multi-cloud. I still have probably 10% of my workload in the data centers. We have only 2 data centers, predominantly for failover reasons. We don't want to be a single threaded in it, just in case something happens. Less than 10% of my workload runs on data center. 90% of the workload is distributed across 5 different clouds, cloud service providers. Amazon, Azure, Google, Alibaba, and Oracle. Some of this is because we are meeting our customers where they are. When someone says, hey, I'm in Oracle Cloud, I want you to be in Oracle Cloud, we can offer them Oracle Cloud. That's kind of the notion. Anybody in the company can request for a cloud account. It's a very simple process. We have a blueprint. So when you are requesting for a cloud account, it will instantiate an account instance for you with Palo Alto software firewall as a perimeter. And it actually instantiates all the policies, regardless of who's instantiating. The base policies is consistent. And when it instantiates, it also registers with my central management, which actually makes it like every single at a company, we have over 3,000 firewalls. My team is responsible for managing. And we have consistency in policy at any point in time. I know it because it's centrally managed. Also, about 2 years back, we moved away from configuration to fully managing every single policy as a code. So because of the open architecture with the firewall and also the different form factors, we have hardware firewall, software firewall, and SASE. And our policy is consistent across all the 3. The base policy is consistent. So regardless of which doorway you're entering into our building as an asset, when I say building, meaning like Palo Alto virtual building, you'll be enforced with the same policy, right? The way we manage that is when we have a requirement for a policy, typically the policy changes happen from 2 places. 1, initiated by IT and InfoSec. 2, the users requesting for a change. One may ask, why would a user request for a change? We are a company of 6,000 engineers, and they are developing products, and some of them are developing firewall policy. Even their firewall that is used by our engineering organization, my team is responsible for managing. So when they are doing their development, if they need to change, test, etc., typically they request IT saying, hey, I need a policy change. It used to take between IT and InfoSec, they negotiate, it takes forever before we could put the policy in place. I mean, you know how IT and InfoSec guys come together, they can never come to an agreement in one meeting, it'll go on and on. By the time they come to it, it's probably 2-3 weeks, and the engineering guy will be screaming saying, because of you, I missed my release. Today, what we have done is we say, okay, that forced us because none of our policy requests met the SLA that we promised to the business. So we sat down and said, what is the range, the risk boundary that we can allow? So we have a self-service tool. Actually, that tool is actually open source to all our customers as well, because most of our customers, when I shared, they said, can you share it with us? So eventually we put it on our user community, and it's also on our customer success portal as well. You can utilize the tool, it's open source. Basically, it has actually parameters. If the parameters is within our risk limit, anyone can go to the self-service tool and request for a policy change, telling which firewall you want, what policy change. If it's within the range, then it automatically generates the policy, tests it against our lab, and if it is good, it automatically pushes the policy to the particular firewall that you have requested. No human involved. When we automated this, 90% of our policy requests, on an average, we are dealing with 200 to 300 policy changes. I have a total of 3,000 firewalls, so 200 to 300 policy changes in a week, and it's done automatically. 5% of our policies fall outside. Those are the ones that come to IT or InfoSec to look at it. Today, we are able to turn around within 24 hours. And the reason I'm saying this is, there are three things, going from configuration to code on our policy has achieved three things for us. Number one, it has given us full control of knowing the version control and change control. If something goes wrong, I know exactly where it was done, when it was done, what was the change, and I can roll back very quickly. Number two, when you're managing large number of firewalls, or even when you're managing small number of firewalls, you want a canary. You want not to impact everything in one go. You know that's not a best practice. Some of the things happened in the industry has taught us never ever do everything in one go, right? So for us, it's canary, which means first we'll roll out to something called our first customer network, which is actually mostly we run our alpha products and sometimes beta products too. Then it goes to our branch offices. Then it goes to our corporate, and then it goes to our customer network, right? So it kind of gas, if everything goes well, then it goes one at a time. Sometimes if it's very complicated, we let the change bake for a while. We don't just immediately roll it out, we'll bake for a while. On the flip side, let's say there is a severe threat I need to address within hours, or I need to turn off something within hours. And I still remember when Log4j happened, when people are going through for days and days and days, we were turned off everything. Whatever needs to be done, it was a matter of days we took care of it. A lot of the things we implied immediately, and then we let the applications team catch up to it. And it was done because we will be able to do it in a consistent form through a code and through pushing it to all the things within a matter of minutes. Also in the cloud, there is two other controls we put. One other control is any server that we instantiate in the cloud, it actually follows the blueprint, and the blueprint is constantly checked for vulnerability, constantly patched, and we don't patch things in production. Our policy is, we don't have any more patch Tuesdays, or except for Microsoft, when they give, we have to do it. But other than that, we don't have patch weekends or anything. When there is a vulnerability that's announced, we patch right away. And it's a continuous patching mechanism. The reason we do continuous patching, except for, I'll say, SAP servers, which is actually not conducive for, you can't just strip it out and bring it back up. Everything else, when there is an issue, we patch the blueprint. And then we tell them that, okay, now the blueprint is patched, bring up your services back, which means the old service goes down, the new service come up. It's the same thing with containers as well. We have our cloud container workload protection. That's actually looking at the container security during our runtime continuously. In addition, we also have attack surface management, even though I claim that everybody, when they need a cloud account, come to me. Every now and then, we do find people go outside of IT and do their own stuff. So we are continuously scanning our attack surface management as well in the cloud, and those signals get sent to SOC. So whenever we find something that's outside our boundary, we bring them back into our boundary as well. In addition, we also look at our secret scanning, which is actually where our infrastructure as a code comes into play. So we have a CI/CD pipeline that's actually our secure software supply pipeline for all our product. And then we have a very similar secure software supply pipeline for IT as well. In IT, we still have some work to do, because unlike product where everything is a development, in IT we have third-party tools. Sometimes your third-party tools don't integrate very easily into the CI/CD pipeline, so we have some work to do. But regardless, if you're checking in any code, it goes through the secret scanning, it goes through static code analysis, all those good stuff that needs to happen is consistently done. And that's part of our approach to how we shifted our security from left to right, from right to left. More and more you can catch upfront in the code rather than runtime. For us, the IAM platform is Okta. And Okta is actually connected to the rest of the ecosystem, and we are also MFA on everything. It's not selective MFA. And one of the things, keeping the spirit of experience, when InfoSec team said you have to turn on MFA on every single application, I was one of those people, it's not okay if we don't have passwordless. So we went gung-ho on passwordless. 4 months the team had time to figure out passwordless, and they have to turn on passwordless. We did turn on passwordless. once we turned on passwordless, we made MFA on every single application. So we have 3 factors. One of the factors is Okta FastPass. You can use it. The second factor is YubiKey. The third factor is the biometric on your laptop itself. So you can use any of the 2 factors. If it is something very, very highly critical, we force biometric, which actually is either YubiKey or your biometric on the device. But generally, it's any of the 2 factors people can use. 30% of our software that IT, or not, sorry, 60% of the software that IT use is SaaS applications. Even with SaaS applications, we have a significant number of custom code that sits on top of it. Example, Salesforce, we have 1 million lines of code that's in GitHub. So we really, when we look at it from a SaaS point of view, we use Prisma SaaS, which is actually part of our SASE solution. It actually has the CASB as well as the DLP. So if there is any anomalies or significant amount of data movement happening, we have DLP policies to apply against it. The same thing with code. When any code gets connected to our SaaS application, it goes through our Prisma Cloud, and then it actually gets handed over with our SaaS as well. We are not a manufacturing company. We are a software manufacturer, but we are not like a typical physical manufacturer company or a medical device company or anything in the medical side. So our IoT is predominantly corporate IoT. We have about 20,000 devices, which are actually anywhere from the camera to the badge reader to the coffee machine to all these things, predominantly from the real estate point of view. In the past, people used to actually put it in a network segment and call it like, okay, this is actually real estate team's issue. IT has given its things, you go and deal with it. But what happened with smart buildings, your conference room knows who is scheduling. It's connected to my Google Calendar. Where Zoom is connected to many other things, and that device I can launch from, troubleshoot from other places. So the real segregation between IT and OT has kind of blurred down quite a bit. Now our IoT service that runs on top of our firewall, we know exactly, it's a real story. About 6 months back, we had a vulnerability. Typically when you have a vulnerability in a IoT device, like a security camera or something, you don't patch. There's like most of the time, the manufacturers are not providing you the patch. You have to make the decision, is that vulnerability risk acceptable for you, or you don't want to accept the risk? For us, it was actually manufacturing from, I think, one of the Chinese company, security camera. It was a very high vulnerability from our point of view. I knew exactly where it was installed, where in the system. I could remotely cut it off within a matter of hours. That's kind of literally, again, this is a service that runs on top of our firewall and gives me now today a full visibility earlier we didn't have. I talked about SD-WAN. SD-WAN is actually, for us, we have moved completely away from, we use actually our SD-WAN and our Prisma for branch-to-branch connection as well. It's not just for users. So we have a mesh, SD-WAN mesh in the cloud. And today, even my headquarters is running on commercial internet. What used to cost me $1 million is now a couple of $1,000s, 2 internet connections, most of the, just for failover, commercial line, one coming from east-west, the other coming from north-south or something like that to make sure. And then there's a SD-WAN mesh on the cloud. Knock on wood, last 2 years, we are 5 nines from our network security, network uptime point of view. What is happening with all this data? You could have figured out by now, we are collecting tons of signals all through, right? I mean, the amount of signal I collect from my endpoint, the amount of signal I collect on my cloud, the amount of signal I'm collecting on my IoT, all of that flows into my SOC. The SOC is, as I mentioned during my keynote, it is actually the last line of defense. So for us, it actually comes down to the magic happens here. On a daily basis, we process about 7.6 petabytes of data, 59 billion events. Events means nothing, right? I mean, anybody can claim events. The events get actually over, there's 5,000 machine language models that are actually churning this. That 59 billion events gets translated to somewhere between 100 to 120 million alerts for us. And we say alerts means nothing still, because alerts has to be deduped. It has to have a context. Not every alert is a bad. On an average, we are dealing with 100 incidents a day. And out of the 100 incidents, 70% of them, we don't touch it at all. It has an automation playbook. Simple example could be if somebody uses Palo Alto credentials outside of Palo Alto, I do get the signal. Because I'm scanning, I'm seeing the traffic, they get automatically a message saying you've used our credentials, your access is cut off, you have 24 hours to change the password. The other example is if you are seeing somebody clicking on a phishing, we immediately know that somebody clicked maliciously on a phishing attack, and that particular machine gets quarantined right away. About 30% of the incidents, typically people actually take a look at it to say, we have automation, but somebody manually say, yes, go ahead and execute it. On an average, 1 to 2 incidents, we do a forensic analysis on a daily basis. This amount of data is managed by 12 people in our SOC, and we run 3 shifts. One shift is from US time zone, another shift is from Europe time zone, and the third shift is no human, only mission. If there is a real issue, there is a pager duty. The same thing with my network. So we call it right now, we are at a point of semi-autonomous SOC. Hopefully we'll get to autonomous SOC at some point in time. Same thing with our network as well. I have 13 people managing our network, including Wi-Fi, and by the way, we don't have routers. We have switches and the firewalls. We manage our routing through policy at the app level and user ID level, because when you think about zero trust, you want that level of granularity. You don't want macro level policies. So we manage routing at user and app ID level. And my network team is about 13 people. We transform from a team of administrators to only engineers. As of this year, earlier, we removed a job family of administrators out of our IT thing. So you have to be either a system engineer or software engineer. You can do any coding language, Java, Python, JavaScript, PowerScript, I don't care. But you should be able to code, and you have to be, it's a culture change. It didn't happen overnight. It was actually something that we have to go through over a period of 3 years, but this year was the pinnacle of the full change and calling it done. We don't have any more administrator job role in our IT family. What does this mean? So this is kind of our journey. It's not happened overnight. Of course, it has its own scars, right? I mean, some people have bigger scars than others, but this is our journey. The journey started somewhere around 2019, 2020. I would say COVID actually helped in some fashion for digital transformation, as everyone says, especially in our endpoint side of the house, because we have to simplify and we have to move. But if you look at it, there's multiple vectors and multiple different initiatives we have done along the way. It's about, I would say, a little over 4-year journey. In our point of view, if you ask my peer, my CPO, my product leader, he says like, Mira, your zero trust is not good enough. Of course, he's a product guy. He has other things which I have not completely taken advantage, and we are continuously evaluating what else we need to do. But my CFO doesn't care about all of this. He's actually happy I'm protecting. He's like, what's the outcome? So this is the outcome. We are able to, this data is about 5 months old. This is actually based on pure our calculation of data. When you're doing something like zero trust, you definitely want efficacy, which is, to me, is a table stake. You can't say, hey, I've done security is good enough, let's take. But there are 2 other elements we looked at it. Apart from security efficacy, what are the other things I can get from an operational point of view? One is velocity, another one is efficiency, right? And we really looked at it from, what is it, like I mentioned about we used to have a team that used to do nothing but patch management. I don't have that team anymore, right? Because we are doing continuous patching. It has become part of people's product teams' operations. There's no more patching, right? Some of these are transformations that we need to go through, and that really translated to, we took like 10 places where we actually took cost out. These are not soft costs. These are like really costly, including tool consolidation. There's about $5 million in our run rate we took out because we consolidated some tools. By getting rid of MPLS, we got some of the run rate out. It translated into something roughly around $30 million, which is almost like 10% of my budget is what actually I'm able to put back into the business. So I could really do products that are business outcome oriented products. So on a short, it's a journey for us. I just want to make sure, this is not like one thing. This is a number of things over a period of 4 years, just giving you a view of a small lens into what does our security architecture look like. With that, I'm going to pause if there's anything, questions, comments. Sure.
So you mentioned earlier about leveraging blueprints. Obviously, they are like secured, hardened, right? So, and we call them golden image in our place. But the thing is, like one of the practical challenges with using golden images, when you assume that okay, it does not have any vulnerabilities because we have patched them prior to basically putting them in the production. So now all of those basically virtual machines or whatever instances that we actually spawn by using those blueprints have got certain user profiles.
Yeah.
And those user profiles have different kind of access levels, privilege levels, and they have certain rights. And some of those rights include basically installation of software that does not necessarily come from any artifactory or any kind of.
Some of them, what does this?
They have the ability to install software
Okay.
that does not come from an authorized source. And the reason for that is, right, so for example, you may have like a supply chain that you closely monitor, like using Artifactory or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So what happens by, that's so fucking annoying. Okay, so so now what happens is that, like, regardless of what controls you have in place to prevent people from using unauthorized software, it's sometimes inevitable because, say, for example, I am using some NPM package in my service delivery, and those NPM package have some dependencies, and it does not require you to go through some basically like well-established process because you can simply say NPM update and it does basically get updated. Similarly, there are other things that get actually updated which we do not have control of. We don't have actually visibility on what got installed. Now, the basic principle is that, okay, we did actually use a hardened machine or a hardened template that actually got initiated in the production. But the question from me to you is that does it guarantee actually that, okay, it is going to remain sanitized and it's going to remain basically secure even after the updates happen that were not authorized?
Yeah. Two things. And I mean, you got a really good question. Just because you have a blueprint doesn't guarantee one time set it and done it all. As part of our blueprint, if it's a server, it does go with our XDR agent. So I'm having a continuous inspection of that machine as well, and I'm getting telemetry of what is happening on that machine if it's a server. If it's a container, it goes with my cloud workload protection as well, right? In addition to that, I'm also scanning traffic. In addition to that, there's a whole bunch of other things that are happening around it is actually compensating control. So just because you're absolutely right. You can't be one time done it and set it and say it's all done. That's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, right? So there are going to be compensatory controls like proactive monitoring, like basically having endpoints that are basically has security with the endpoints, right? So those are all going to be reactive. And there are going to be basically like instances where basically you don't have signatures. For example, like I have a Cortex agent or something like installed.
Yes.
Right? And it does not have a signature or a hash that can detect basically whatever updates we made to the software are going to be detected because it is logical and it is basically something that's coming from a trusted source, for example, because we add basically NPM repositories, because they're trusted repository. We have certificates that install it based on those. So that's trusted, it comes from a trusted source. So our endpoints also see them as trusted source, right? Now, the challenge that I faced multiple times was that whenever somebody did that, it actually did not come across as a malware. It did not come across as some software that has vulnerabilities with some exploits that are already available for that. It came as basically kind of like for the lack of a better word, it kind of like destroyed basically the synergy in the environment, meaning that like components basically started behaving very weirdly. For example, there was some application layer DOS because the memory consumption went high, and things like that, which were not normally like basically being detected by the endpoints. So that's something that we have seen. I have particularly seen that causing a lot of issues.
I definitely would like to take offline with some of the use case specifically that you're talking about, because there's also, we are bringing our cloud and our CDR. With our CDR, we are bringing both the some of the elements what you're talking about, including the CSP's raw log as part of our analysis, because you're absolutely right, some of that can escape. We have to really look at the raw logs as well. That's part of XIM. We are starting to look at it. But I definitely would like to take, and if there's something, that use case that you're seeing, and if it's not capturing, I would like to take it with my product and engineering team to say, how are they managing it? Because unfortunately, I'm not able to clearly tell you this is the right thing, because I'm telling what we have done. I know in our case, we are taking raw log out of the cloud services, and it's all is also going to the SOC. That's another mechanism. There's multi-layer there.
Thank you.
I think the larger question that is being put up is, well, this could be a use case. It came up in one of the sessions in the afternoon as well. The larger question is, in one of the sessions in the afternoon, what came up was legacy versus advancement, what we are trying to do. And between transformation and advancement, what is transformation? What was transformation years back is a legacy today. And so be it is what is going to catch up the next time. Is what we are doing, is it sufficient enough for us to cover against is the larger question. It's not to you. I'm saying, let's say when we prepare for 5 years or 10 years down the line, because the threats that we are being posed with today are far, far smarter enough. In order to defend a smarter attack, we need to have a smarter defense. Yes. And like we prepare from I represent Tata Group, we have a LTP of 2050. And this gets validated every year. Mm-hmm. So kind of every time you validate and advancement takes place. And it's an ongoing question that we have. Yeah. How do we address it is the point. And more so from, let's say, Palo or, is this getting addressed at a company level, at an industry level, cross-industry level? Is the larger, it's not a specific question where I can tell you a problem, but I think it's a strategic question.
No, it's question. Actually, I get it, because today, yesterday I was in DSCI, and one of the things I said was, with every new technology, there's a new threat. And there's always constantly, I even concluded my presentation saying that we think this is where actually we are at, but I can tell right now we are not done. The journey is not done. It's like, security is like breathing. You can't say, hey, I've been breathing enough. Can I just stop for a couple of days? We know that we'll die, right? That's the exact same thing. You have to be, as long as, the new vectors are coming. Forget about even technology not changing. We are actually seeing more and more, our Unit 42, which is actually our research arm, we are seeing more organized, more than ever. Today, it's much more organized when you are looking at attacks coming. The adversaries are better organized than solution providers and practitioners. They have someone who can go and breach, get the foot in the door for you, someone who's expert in extraction of data, someone who's expert in taking the data and monetizing the data, someone who's an expert in really collecting the money for ransomware. You can literally have organized way of handovers today, right? So to your question, you're absolutely right. We are not done. Is someone like Palo Alto or any other security vendor, are we looking ahead and around the corner? That's what is the thing that we focus on our research side. Okay, what kind of new threat vectors are coming? What we need to think about as a possibility, right? Ethical hacking is something that every cyber vendor, we have a team that does nothing but that.
Just a quick...
We are definitely, we actually, we have roughly over 85,000 customers. On an average, we are actually seeing 11.3 billion attacks against our customers, because it all passes through our cloud services we offer, out of which 2.3 million is net new every single day. There's so many zero-day attacks in the last 3 years, the numbers have just gone exponentially high.
See, like we predict defense to the predictable attack. There is someone who's working similarly on the attack side as well. Yes. Right, and this goes parallelly. So maybe just one piece, the digital transformation has multiplied 4 times in our own country of what it was supposed to be there earlier.
Yes.
So let's say the device ecosystem, both smartphones or the large phone, the big screen as well. And inside the organization, it's getting, I would say, very, very complex.
Yes.
And sleepless nights, I would say, to the technologists on the writer side. But thank you for, I mean, it was not a question, it was a co-sharing
No,
actually.
it's actually absolutely a good perspective. You're absolutely right.
You also leverage other threat intel, or it's unit 42 threat intel?
Thank you.
So definitely Unit 42 threat intel is the main source for us because we have over 200 engineers doing nothing but threat intel and I mean researchers, I shouldn't say engineers. These are researchers and we are connected with various even government organizations and sharing. And a lot of these threat intels people are not just doing in a silo, they also share. Sometimes we are also sharing with our own peers in the industry. We are competitors, but we do share some of this because it's a joint effort. So I would say we are not having a third party who actually is sourcing, but it's our group collaboration with, you know, be it federal government of United States or be it, you know, many of the government agencies as well we work closely with. Any other question? Okay. If there's no more questions, thank you very much for coming over to the session and, you know, hope you enjoy and I hope you had something that you can take away from this session. Thank you.
Thank you all for being a part of the session. We have a small token of appreciation for you, so please make sure to collect it on your way out. And a small sticker will be put on your ID card to keep a track of all of the attendees for the session. Thank you.